A photo appeared on our mantel, and the man in it was never there. Reddit stories. I never understood why my mother insisted on keeping that old photo on the mantel. It was a blurry, off-centered picture of the five of us. Her dad, me, my younger sister Ellie, and a golden retriever that wasn't even ours. We didn't even own a dog, but there it sat, framed in chipped silver, right between a dusty porcelain angel and the clock that never worked. She dusted that picture every Sunday like it was sacred, like it was something more than just a frozen moment. But to me, it was just a lie, because everything in that photo was already broken the moment the shutter clicked. It started small, like it always does. A quiet tension over breakfast, spoons clinking against bowls too loudly. Dad's smile never quite reaching his eyes. Ellie chewing her cereal slowly, as if afraid to make a sound. Mom, dressed a little too nice for grocery shopping, always rushing to be somewhere she wouldn't name. I was 13 the day I realized that silence in a family is its own language. It says things no one dares speak out loud. Back then, I thought families like ours were normal. A modest house with blue shutters, arguments behind closed doors, hugs on birthdays, and apologies written in leftover cake. We had Sunday dinners where no one talked about anything real. Movie nights where laughter echoed, just a little too loud to hide the cracks beneath. But the truth is, you don't notice a house falling apart when you live inside it. You just call it home. I used to think Dad was the strongest man I knew. He worked 2 jobs and still found time to show up for my school plays, cheering louder than anyone even when I forgot my lines. But over the years, something in him dimmed. He got quieter, started coming home later, sat longer in the car before walking through the front door. There were days I watched him from my bedroom window, fingers clenched on the steering wheel like he was deciding whether or not to turn the key and drive away. And then there was Ellie. Sweet, strange Ellie who talked to spiders and left love notes in the mailbox addressed to nobody. She used to sneak into my room at night with a flashlight and read me stories she made up on the spot. Her imagination was a universe I envied. She painted the world in colors I couldn't see. But even she started retreating, drawing less, talking less, sleeping more. I'd hear her crying sometimes, muffled under the hum of her electric fan. When I asked what was wrong, she'd smile and say, "Just a sad dream." But her dreams weren't the problem. The turning point came in winter. December, to be exact, the year the snow never stopped falling, and neither did the silence. I remember the day the photo was taken because it was the first time in months we'd all been in the same room without someone storming out. Mom had insisted on it, practically dragged us outside in our mismatched coats, plopped us in front of the hedge, and told the neighbor to just take the damn picture. Dad was holding Ellie, who was trying not to cry, and I was in the middle, arms stiff at my sides. The dog, Max, belonged to the neighbor, but wandered into the shot. No one laughed. We just stood there, captured in a moment we pretended was happy. That's what the mantel picture was. Proof. Proof we once looked like a family. After that, things fell apart quickly. Dad moved into the basement. Mom stopped making dinner. Ellie stopped speaking to either of them. I started walking home the long way just to avoid the silence. One night I came home to find the living room empty, the angel figurine shattered on the floor, and the photo crooked in its frame. I didn't ask what happened. I didn't need to. The strange thing is, even as everything fractured, no one left. We stayed in that house like ghosts trapped in old routines. Wake up. Pretend. Sleep, repeat. Sometimes I'd catch Mom staring at the photo, her eyes glazed like she was trying to will the moment back. Sometimes I'd see Dad trace his fingers along the mantel, stopping just short of touching the frame. And Ellie, she started painting again. But her paintings were dark. Shadows swallowing houses, faces with no mouths, hands reaching from behind doors. I asked her once what they meant. She shrugged and said, "I paint what I see." Then one night, everything changed. It was late, past midnight, when I woke to the sound of footsteps. Not the creaky kind you hear every night in old houses, but frantic ones. Running. Doors slamming, a voice, Ellie's voice, screaming something I couldn't make out. I ran to her room and found it empty, the window open, the cold pouring in. Her bed was unmade, blankets on the floor, paintbrushes scattered like she left mid-stroke. Mom and Dad came running too, both looking at each other like they didn't know who to blame. Like neither of them even remembered how to say each other's names. The police came. They searched the woods. They asked questions I didn't have answers to. Had she been upset? Yes. Had she ever run away before? No. Were there signs? 100, but none I recognized until it was too late. Days turned to weeks. Flyers faded on telephone poles. The snow melted. But Ellie didn't come back. Mom started sleeping in Ellie's room. She said it made her feel close. Dad stopped sleeping altogether. I found him once in the garage, sitting in the car with the engine off, the windows down, staring at the dashboard like it held some secret. And me? I stopped speaking too. Not out loud, but inside. Something in me locked shut. The silence in our house became so loud it hurt. It wasn't until spring that something changed again. I was cleaning, mindlessly dusting the mantel like Mom used to do, when I noticed something strange about the photo. At first, I thought it was just the glare, but then I looked closer. Ellie's eyes. They weren't looking at the camera. They were looking left, at something, or someone. Outside the frame. I had seen that photo 1,000 times, but I'd never noticed it, never really looked. Her expression was different from the rest of us. She wasn't pretending. She looked scared. That night, I took the photo out of its frame. Behind it, taped to the backboard, was a piece of folded paper. A note, in Ellie's handwriting. 4 words, just 4. It's not our house. I froze. My blood turned cold, like the air on that winter day. What did it mean? I turned the paper over. Nothing else. Just those words. But they didn't feel like poetry. They felt like warning. I started looking through her things. Notebooks, sketch pads, her hidden drawer beneath the dresser. And what I found chilled me more than anything. Page after page of the same house, ours, but twisted, windows barred, shadows in the corners, and always the same figure in the upstairs window. A man. A man we didn't know, but Ellie did. She'd drawn him dozens of times. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I kept staring at the photo, Ellie's eyes, the dog that wasn't ours, the lie we all posed for. My mind ran wild. Had she seen something that night? Had she followed someone? Was someone already inside before she disappeared? The police said there was no sign of forced entry. No evidence of abduction, just a runaway teen. But I remembered the way the photo was crooked, the way the angel was shattered, the look in Dad's eyes. And I remembered the photo, the thing that was supposed to be proof of our happiness, hiding something behind it all along. And then, something else happened. I got a letter in the mail, no return address, no stamp, just my name written in Ellie's handwriting. Inside, another photo. Not the same one, this time just me and Ellie. And in the background, standing by the hedge, was the same man from her drawings, smiling, like he was part of the family all along. I held that photo in my trembling hands for what felt like hours, the weight of it far heavier than the paper it was printed on. It was a candid shot, grainy and strangely angled, like it was taken from behind a curtain or through a crack in the door. Ellie and I stood side by side, maybe 10 or 11 years old. She was grinning wide, one of those rare, unfiltered smiles she'd only show when she forgot the world was watching. And I looked happy too. But in the background, behind the hedge that bordered our yard like a thin green curtain, was him. The man. Pale face. Dark coat. Hands resting unnaturally still at his sides. Eyes like glass marbles, too blank, too focused. Watching. My stomach twisted. I flipped the photo over. No date, no message, no explanation. Just a cold, white void. I checked the envelope again. Nothing but my name. Not even my full name. Just Sam. Which meant it was personal. Someone knew me. Knew us. I felt the air change around me. Like I had unknowingly crossed a threshold into something I wasn't supposed to see. I didn't tell my parents about the photo. There was no point. Dad was barely present anymore, drifting through days like a man underwater. Mom had turned Ellie's room into a shrine, every stuffed animal placed exactly where Ellie used to leave them. Even the crooked poster on the wall still hung with a rip at the corner. If I told them, they'd either say it was a prank or dismiss it entirely, and I couldn't stand either response. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to get them by asking questions in a house built on silence. So I started with the photo. I took it to the local drugstore where Ellie used to print her pictures. The old guy behind the counter, Ralph, remembered her. Said she came in almost every other week, printing out odd snapshots, blurry trees, shadows, birds in flight. Artistic type, he'd said. Kind of spooky sometimes. I asked if he recognized the photo. He squinted at it under the harsh fluorescent lights, then shook his head. Not one of ours. Wrong gloss, and this edge, it's hand-trimmed. You see that? He pointed to the bottom, where the border was slightly uneven. Someone cut this out of something bigger. That gave me chills. Why would someone crop a photo and send it to me now? Unless it was meant to be a clue. I left the drugstore with more questions than answers and decided to go back to the beginning. The day the original photo was taken, I had to remember everything, every strange detail. I started writing it all down in a notebook. How Mom had forced us into it, how Max the dog appeared out of nowhere, how Dad had looked behind him right before the shutter clicked. I wrote down the clothes we wore, the direction of the sunlight, even what we had for lunch that day. I wanted to rebuild that moment second by second. Something told me the truth was hidden in the details. That night, I stayed up in Ellie's room, flipping through her old sketchbooks. I found one I hadn't seen before, tucked behind a row of dusty encyclopedias. It had no cover, just a black spiral spine and pages filled with frantic pencil strokes. At first, it was hard to make sense of. Chaotic images of eyes, doors, staircases, trees. But then I saw it crew a recurring symbol, a circle with an arrow through it, like a compass pointing off-center. She'd drawn it dozens of times, sometimes in the corner of a page, sometimes as the centerpiece. In one sketch, she'd drawn our house, and that same symbol was etched into the attic window. We didn't have an attic window. I raced downstairs and looked at the house from the backyard. Nothing but shingles and sky above the second floor. No attic window, but Ellie wouldn't have drawn something over and over unless it meant something. Unless she saw something. The next morning, I went up to the attic. It wasn't much, just a crawl space really full of boxes, dust, and that distinct scent of forgotten years. But as I swept my flashlight across the beams, I noticed something strange. One of the planks on the far wall looked newer than the others. I tapped it, hollow. My heart pounded. I pried it loose with the end of a broom handle and found a small cavity behind it. Inside, wrapped in plastic, was a stack of photos. Not one or two, dozens. All taken from strange angles, all showing our house from outside. The same man appeared in several of them, sometimes by the hedge, sometimes across the street. Once, standing right on our porch, I dropped them. My breath caught in my throat. He'd been watching us. For years, and somehow, none of us noticed. I couldn't keep this secret anymore. I showed the photos to Dad. He stared at them silently for a long time, his jaw clenching tighter with each passing second. Then he did something I didn't expect. He took one photo and walked out of the house without saying a word. I followed him. He drove across town to a neighborhood I didn't recognize and pulled up to an old brick building with a faded sign, Greenwell Psychiatric Institute. He didn't take me inside. Just said, "Wait here." I watched from the car as he walked in, photo in hand, and disappeared through the glass doors. He was gone for almost an hour. When he returned, he looked older somehow, drained. He didn't say anything until we were halfway home. "There was a man," he said, "before you were born. Lived across the street from us. Seemed friendly. Used to wave when I mowed the lawn. But Ellie didn't like him. She was just a baby, but every time she saw him, she'd cry. I thought it was nothing. Then one night, I caught him taking photos through our window. I called the cops. He was arrested, said he had a condition. They put him in Greenwell. He paused. But they released him years later, quietly, said he was stable. I didn't recognize him in that photo until today. My blood ran cold. So he's been back? I don't know, Dad whispered. But if he sent you that photo, he's trying to remind us, trying to tell us he never left. We got home and found the front door open. Mom was standing in the living room, pale and shaking. She held a new envelope in her hands. Inside, another photo, this time just me, taken from outside my bedroom window. From last week. There was no denying it anymore. Someone was watching us. Still, we called the police. They took statements, collected the photos, promised to investigate. But I saw the way the officer looked at us. Like we were paranoid, like maybe we were imagining things. They told us to install cameras, lock our windows, be alert. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that symbol Ellie drew over and over, the circle with the off-center arrow. I started Googling it, hoping to find some hidden meaning, and finally I did. It wasn't a symbol. It was a mark, a sigil used in obscure folklore, a ward or a trap, depending on how it was drawn. The version Ellie used, it was a warning, a ward against something already inside. That's when it clicked. It's not our house. She hadn't meant it literally. She meant something was wrong with it. Something inside it didn't belong. Something, or someone, that had been there all along. I went to the basement, the place Dad used to sleep, where the air was always just a little colder. I walked along the concrete floor until I reached the far wall. And there, faint but visible, was the same symbol, carved into the wall with something sharp. And beneath it another message, this one longer. He lives between the walls. He listens when you cry. Don't speak his name. Don't follow the knocking. Suddenly I remembered. The knocking. The nights Ellie would come into my room and say she had a bad dream. The knocking she'd hear in the walls, soft and steady, like someone tapping from the other side. We thought it was the pipes, or the house settling, but it wasn't. It never was. The house was never ours. We just lived there. With him. And now, after all this time, he wasn't hiding anymore. The sound came back that same night. Not loud at first, just a faint tap, 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 like a fingertip against wood. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between knocks. 3 seconds, then 2, then silence. Then again, tap, tap. I held my breath. The rhythm was deliberate, almost patient. Like whatever was behind it didn't need to rush. It knew I was listening. It always knew. I forced myself to move. My legs were stiff, my body tight with dread, but I pulled the blankets back and stood. I didn't turn on the light. Somehow I knew not to. The shadows felt thick, like turning on the light might make them move. I crept across the room and pressed my ear to the wall where the knocking had come from. Nothing. Just the silence of old drywall and dust. But I felt something beneath it, a hum, a presence, like the wall itself was holding its breath. I backed away. In the hallway, the air was colder than it should have been. The thermostat still reads 70, but the floor was freezing beneath my socks. I passed Ellie's room. Mom wasn't in there anymore. After the last photo arrived, she'd started sleeping on the couch. She couldn't stand the idea of being in that room if Ellie might never return, but I still felt her in there. Ellie, her scent, her drawings, her warning. Downstairs, the front door was locked, the windows secured. The camera lights glowed red. Still recording, still watching. But it didn't matter. We knew that now. The danger wasn't outside. It was here. I walked back to the basement. My flashlight flickered as I opened the door. That smell again. Stale air and wet wood. Like a crawl space that hadn't seen light in years. The knocking had stopped, but the quiet was worse. I remembered Ellie's note carved behind the wall, her drawings of the man, her symbols. And I remembered what she wrote. Oh, don't follow the knocking. But I had to. I reached the far wall where the symbol was carved. The lines looked deeper than before, almost fresh. Beneath it, the carved message seemed longer than I remembered. I knelt, tracing my fingers over the wood, and felt something catch a gap. My heart skipped. I leaned in, pulled gently, and the panel shifted. A hidden door. Behind it, darkness. I stood at the edge for a long moment. The smell was worse here. Earthy, rotting damp. My flashlight beam disappeared into the black, swallowed up by whatever space lay beyond. I thought about waking Dad, but I knew what he'd say. Let the police handle it. But the police had come and gone, left us with nothing but dead batteries and unanswered questions. So I stepped inside. The space was narrow, just enough to move sideways. It stretched behind the basement wall like a secret corridor. Cobwebs clung to my face, dust coated every surface. I passed old wiring, rotted wood, strange symbols scratched into the beams. Some like Ellie's, some different, older, cruder. I had the sickening feeling someone had lived down here recently. And then I saw it. A mattress, dirty, torn, covered in what looked like charcoal drawings, circles, arrows, names, some crossed out, some repeated. My name, Ellie's name, Mum, Dad, even Max, the dog from the photo. Max, the dog that wasn't ours. I staggered back. The flashlight beam flicked past something else. A wall of photographs, all taped up, overlapping, curling at the edges, at school, at the grocery store, in the backyard, every stage of our lives. Taken without our knowledge, from windows, from behind fences, from inside the house. The last photo at the bottom chilled me the most. It was Ellie, in this very tunnel. Her hand outstretched toward the camera, her mouth open, not screaming, but saying something. Her eyes were wide with terror. She had been here. She had found this place and something. Someone had found her. I ran. I don't remember climbing out or slamming the basement door behind me. I don't remember my dad finding me, curled on the floor, shaking and mumbling incoherent fragments. But I do remember the moment his face changed, when I showed him the photos, the tunnel, the carving. The blood drained from him like a sink unplugged. He didn't say a word, just called the police. This time, they brought more than notepads. Crime scene techs, dogs, even someone from the FBI. The tunnel was sealed off, the photos bagged, the mattress taken, but no trace of Ellie, no sign of the man. The investigators asked questions that made no sense. How long had we lived here? Had we noticed strange smells, cold spots? Missing time. Missing time. It didn't feel like a police investigation. It felt like a cover-up. That night, I stayed awake watching the hallway camera feed from my laptop. Around 3:12 a.m., I saw it. A figure, thin, slightly hunched, walking from the kitchen to the stairs. Not Mom, not Dad, not me. I rewound, watched again. Frame by frame, he had no face, just blur. Like the camera couldn't see him. But Ellie had. Ellie saw everything. I became obsessed. I pored over her notebooks, comparing symbols, mapping out every spot she marked in her sketches. Each symbol matched a corner of the house. The basement, the stairwell, the attic, the coat closet. Hidden places. Places you wouldn't notice unless you knew. And at the center of it all was the photo on the mantel. The one with the dog Max. It wasn't just a mistake or a funny moment. Max was the first sign. A marker. In old folklore, dogs, especially ones that appear in strange places, are Odeons, warnings. And the man in the hedge had always followed the dog. Not us. He was tracking it, using it. I flipped the photo over again, looking for something, anything. And then I found it. Scratched lightly into the backing board coordinates. I typed them into my phone. They pointed to the woods. The same woods the police searched when Ellie disappeared. But not the same part. This spot was deeper, older, untouched. I didn't tell anyone. Not Mom, not Dad, not the FBI. I needed to go alone. I needed to find her. The next morning, I packed a flashlight, bottled water, a knife, and Ellie's sketchbook. I left a note on my bed. If I don't come back, check the coordinates. Bring the photo. The woods were dense. The trees swallowed sound. I followed the GPS until the signal started to flicker. The air grew heavy, still. I came upon a clearing, ringed by trees that bent inward, like watching silently. In the center was a stone structure, barely more than a mound, moss-covered. Ancient. On it, carved into the stone, was the same symbol from Ellie's drawings. And beneath it, the last thing I expected, a door. I reached for it. My fingers shook. The handle was cold. As I turned it, I heard it again, the knocking. From inside. Steady. 3 talents. Then 2. Then silence. Then a whisper. From behind me, a voice I hadn't heard in months. Don't follow the knocking. I turned. Nothing. Just the trees. But I felt it. Her. Ellie. She was near. I opened the door and stepped inside. The door creaked open like something had been waiting for it. Behind it, darkness thicker than anything I'd ever seen. Not just the absence of light. It felt alive. Like it breathed, listened, watched. I hesitated only a moment before stepping in, flashlight trembling in my hand. The beam cut through the black like a razor, but even then, the walls didn't reflect light. They swallowed it. Swallowed me. The air was damp and metallic, thick with the scent of soil and something older. I found myself inside a tunnel. Not like the one in our basement. This one was deeper, older, carved into earth and rock. Symbols marked the walls every few feet. Variations of the one Ellie had drawn, but distorted. Bent at wrong angles, twisted like they had been broken and put back together wrong. They pulsed faintly, a soft glow not from any natural light source, but from something beneath the surface. I kept walking. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time didn't work here. My watch ticked normally, but the seconds felt longer. I began to hear whispers. Not clear words, but syllables brushing past my ears like wind. Mo. See him. He between. Then the knocking started again. Soft, deliberate, like someone was walking barefoot just behind the walls, tapping as they followed me. 3 taps. 2 taps. Silence. It didn't come from ahead or behind, but everywhere, like the tunnel was a giant ribcage and something inside it was shifting. I came to a fork. 2 tunnels, each marked with symbols. The left had Ellie's symbol. Pure. Untouched. The right bore a corrupted version, scratched over with deep gouges. I didn't hesitate. I followed her sign. I could feel her here. Like the air carried pieces of her breath, like the walls remembered her footsteps. The passage widened into a chamber. The floor was stone. The walls circular, curved inward like a ribbed cocoon. In the center stood a structure. A column made of mirrors, stacked and twisted like a spiral. Each mirror reflected something wrong. I saw my face from the side when I looked straight on. I saw the back of my head where my reflection should be. I reached out to touch one and my fingers met glass. But my reflection didn't move. It watched me, and then smiled. I staggered back. This was no ordinary place. This was his place, where the lines between real and imagined bled together. Where the man from the hedge lived, if that's what you could call it. A sound echoed through the chamber, a soft cry. Ellie. It came from somewhere below. Beneath the mirrors. I dropped to my knees, pressing my ear to the stone. I could hear breathing. Weak, ragged, but real. She was alive. Trapped. I circled the mirrors, looking for an opening, a seam, anything. That's when I noticed it. One of the mirrors wasn't glass at all. It was paper, stretched tight and painted with silver to mimic reflection. I pressed against it. It gave way. I tore it down. Behind it, a staircase spiraled into darkness. I didn't think. I descended. The stairs twisted like a spine, and as I went deeper, I heard more whispers. Clearer now. My name, my thoughts, memories I hadn't shared with anyone. A teacher's voice from 2nd grade. A joke Ellie told me at age 6. My own voice, repeating secrets I thought I'd buried. He knew everything. At the bottom was another chamber, smaller, colder. The walls here weren't carved. They were grown. Root, like structures pulsed, alive, forming a prison of vines and bone. In the center, curled on the floor, was Ellie. She looked smaller, fragile, her clothes torn, hair matted, skin pale. But her eyes, when they met mine, they were still hers. Wide alert. And filled with something I hadn't seen in so long, hope. I ran to her. She didn't speak. Just clutched me, burying her face in my shoulder. Her body trembled. I held her tight, whispering, I'm here. I found you. We're going home. But her head shook. She pointed to the walls. Then she mouthed one word. Trap. The ground shook. A sound erupted from above. Not a roar. Not thunder, but something between. A voice made of pressure and hunger. a sound that didn't travel through air but through bone. The roots in the walls pulsed faster. The chamber began to close in. I pulled Ellie up. She was weak but walking. We ran up the spiral stairs as the structure groaned and shifted. Behind us, the knocking started again. Faster this time. Furious. It echoed from every wall, every surface, as if the tunnel itself was screaming. "Don't follow the knocking," I repeated under my breath. Don't follow. Don't follow. But it was following us. We reached the mirrored chamber. The reflections inside the pillar were moving now. Hundreds of faces, all of them ours. Me, Ellie, Mom, Dad, but twisted, bleeding, laughing. One of them reached out of the mirror, hands stretching too far, fingers too long. It tried to grab Ellie. I smashed it with a rock. The mirror cracked, and with it, the chamber wailed. Like the place felt pain, we ran. Back through the tunnel, past the symbols, the whispers, the dead air. The knocking grew louder. Closer. It moved through the walls like fire through dry leaves. I could feel it gaining. Every second, it got closer. The tunnel opened again into the woods. Daylight. I pushed Ellie forward, but she froze. Standing just outside the tunnel, backlit by the morning light, was the man. Tall. Still. Watching. His face was wrong. Not deformed, but too perfect. Like someone had tried to sculpt a face from memory and missed every detail. No pores. No age. Just smooth, uncanny wrongness. Ellie whimpered. I stepped in front of her. He didn't move, but he raised a hand and pointed back into the tunnel. He wanted her, wanted us to go back. I took a step forward. My fists clenched. He tilted his head, curious. Like a dog studying prey. The moment stretched. Then Ellie reached into her pocket, pulled out a piece of paper, her final drawing, the complete symbol. She held it up. The man shrieked, not with sound, but with distortion. The air bent, trees shook. The tunnel behind us collapsed, imploding into dust. He stumbled backward like gravity betrayed him, then vanished. Not ran, not faded, just gone. We didn't speak, we walked. Stumbling back through the woods, Ellie leaning on me, my legs like jelly, our breath ragged. We found the road. We waved down a car. Home was waiting. But it wouldn't be the same, not now. Not ever, because we knew the truth. The house was never just a house. It invited him. We were tenants. And no, we'd left. But what if someone else moved in? What if they didn't find the symbol? What if they followed the knocking? It took time, months, for anyone to believe what happened. The authorities said we were traumatized, confused. The FBI took our statements, logged the drawings, even cataloged the collapsed tunnel. But by then, the opening was gone. The stones shifted back into earth like it had never existed. They chalked it up to a sinkhole, said Ellie had wandered off and suffered temporary amnesia due to psychological distress. My parents nodded, hollow-eyed, clinging to her like the truth didn't matter anymore, only that she was back. But I knew better, and so did Ellie. We just stopped talking about it, out loud at least. We moved. Far from the house. Another state, another climate, another life, supposedly. Our new home was smaller, plainer. No hedges, no basement, no shadows that moved without cause. But that didn't mean we were free. Not really. Because even in the new house, Ellie refused to sleep alone. She kept a flashlight under her pillow. Wouldn't go near closets unless the doors were off. She drew symbols on every window frame, every outlet cover, every mirror. I didn't stop her. We'd sit sometimes, late at night, and she'd sketch the house from memory. Not our house, but that house, the one that invited him in. She'd draw it over and over, changing little things each time. A door that wasn't there before. A face in a window. The tree in the backyard bent slightly in the wrong direction. She said the house was alive, shifting, rebuilding itself, waiting for a new family. And then one day, I saw the listing. I wasn't even looking for it, just browsing out of habit. But there it was, 1023 Bramble Lane Paint. New shutters. Same bones, same address. The real estate ad was cheerful, oblivious. Charming 3BR family home in a quiet neighborhood. Recently renovated, motivated seller. There were photos, bright and sterile, but the house looked wrong, even scrubbed clean and staged. Too stiff, like it was pretending. I showed Ellie. She stared at the screen for a long time, then said, "It's hungry again." I didn't sleep that night. The next day I drove past it. Couldn't help myself. The new owners were already moving in. Boxes stacked on the porch, a little girl chasing a ball across the lawn, parents smiling awkwardly at the neighbors. I wanted to scream, to tell them to run. But what would I say? That a thing with no name used to live in their walls. That the house invited him back through symbols and silence and photos that lied. Instead, I drove on. But I came back every week, just to watch, just to see. Weeks passed. The lawn grew neater. The windows glowed warmly at night. A swing appeared in the backyard. It was almost enough to convince me I'd imagined everything. That it was trauma, just like they said. That maybe houses aren't haunted. Maybe people are. And then, one Friday, I saw it at the man. By the hedge, just like before, same coat, same stillness, same face that didn't belong to any human memory. He didn't move, just watched the girl on the swing, and when she looked up, when her eyes met his, she smiled and waved, like she already knew him, like he was part of the family. I panicked. Drove straight to the nearest police station, breathless, wild-eyed. I told them there was a man stalking a child. They took my name, sent a car. I followed from a distance, heart thudding like a war drum. But by the time they arrived, he was gone. They checked the neighborhood, asked questions, got nothing. The girl told them, "He's my invisible friend. He visits me at night, but only when the house is quiet." I stood there frozen. The police laughed it off, but I saw her drawing, a notebook clutched to her chest, a circle with an arrow drawn in crayon. I had to do something. I had to. So that night, I broke in. I waited until their lights went out, until the neighborhood dimmed to a hush. I slipped through the side gate, across the lawn, into the basement window I knew never locked. The house greeted me like an old enemy. The air hadn't changed, still held that hush, that waiting breath. Still too quiet, like the house was listening again. I moved room to room, heart pounding, looking for signs. I found them quickly. A crack in the basement wall, just where the tunnel had been. A fresh symbols carved into the wood inside the coat closet. A child's drawing of a smiling man with no face, standing in her bedroom door. I reached the living room, the mantel, and there it was, the photo. Same frame, same silver chip, same moment, same dog. They'd found it. The picture we left behind, or maybe the house gave it to them. I opened the frame, checked the back, same message. "It's not our house." I took the photo and started to leave, but the knocking began again. Loud, fast. Not from the walls this time, but from inside my head. I staggered, clutched my skull, the sound echoing between my ears, shaking thoughts loose. And then, his voice. Not spoken, not whispered, imposed. "You brought them here?" I turned. He was standing in the hallway, closer than ever. Still, watching, patient. My limbs wouldn't move. He didn't walk, just advanced. The walls bent around him. Paint blistered, light bulbs shattered, and in his hand something new. A photograph. I knew what it was before I saw it. My family. Our new house. Us, Ellie. Mom, Dad, me, asleep. Taken from inside our new home. He raised it slowly, showing me, then vanished. The knocking stopped. I dropped the photo frame. Ran. I didn't stop until I reached the mode I'd slept in years ago when we first left. I called Mom, told her to take Ellie and Dad and leave. Didn't explain. Didn't give her time to ask. I sent them money, told them to buy tickets. Anywhere. Just go now? I've been on the move since. Because I finally understood. He doesn't live in the house. The house lives in him. And when you see him, when you remember him, you bring him with you. He follows the memory. Follows the photo. Follows the silence. He's not bound by walls or rooms or locked doors. He's bound by us. By anyone who listens for the knocking. By those who ask too many questions. By the ones who see a photo and say, "Wait, who's that?" You don't escape him, you only delay him. And now he's waiting again. Another house, another family, another photo waiting to be framed. And someone, some kid, will walk into the living room one night and hear it tap, tap, 3 knocks. Silence, 2 knocks. And then the voice, not a scream, Not a growl, just a whisper in their ear. Don't follow the knocking, but they will. They always do. I don't remember when exactly I stopped believing we'd ever be free. Maybe it was after the third move, or the night I found a photo tucked into the lining of my suitcase, even though I hadn't packed it. Maybe it was when Ellie whispered in her sleep, "He's in the static now." Wherever the line was, I'd crossed it long ago. I wasn't living anymore. I was surviving in the echo of a story no one wanted to hear. A story that rewrote itself every time someone framed a moment they thought they understood. It's been years since we left Bramble Lane, since the basement collapsed, since Ellie stopped drawing and started writing instead. I found her journals once, hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the little house we rented by the coast. Page after page of scrawled thoughts, half-dreams, warnings written backward. Most of it unreadable. One phrase repeated: the house was never built. It was remembered. I didn't understand at first. I do now. The house isn't bricks and wood. It's memory. It's replication. It's a parasite made of belief, manifesting through photographs, recollection, recognition. That's why it always begins with the photo. The moment someone places it in a frame and calls it real, he returns. He slips between the cracks of awareness and hides where attention flickers. In mirrors, in film grain, in the soft noise between television channels. Ellie was right. He's in the static now. I tried destroying the photo once, the one from the Mantel. Burned it in a rusted barrel behind a motel in Iowa. Watched the flames consume the silver frame, the cheap gloss paper. Thought I'd finally severed the tether. That night, I dreamed of ash falling in reverse, the picture reassembling itself piece by piece. I woke up to it lying on the nightstand, untouched, perfectly intact. Only this time, I wasn't in it. Just Mom, Dad, and Ellie. And him, closer than ever, standing right where I should have been. I stopped trying to destroy it after that. You can't kill an idea by breaking its vessel. You can't unremember something that wants to be remembered more than you want to forget. A few weeks ago, I got an email. No subject line, no message, just an attachment. A new photo, a birthday party, kids laughing around a cake, and there he was again, in the far background, blurred, standing by a window. Just like always. Just watching. I did what I always do. Packed a bag, left town. No goodbyes. No forwarding address. You can't outrun him, but you can try to stay just far enough ahead that he forgets your scent. At least for a while. But something's changing. He's not hiding anymore. He's growing bolder. Last night, I stayed in a roadside inn. Middle of nowhere. Too tired to drive, too wired to sleep. I flicked on the old television bolted to the dresser. Static, I didn't think anything of it until I heard a knock. Not at the door, but from the screen. Tap. Tap. I leaned in closer. The static started to shape into lines, vertical, then horizontal, then shadows. I saw a room, my room. The one I had when I was 12. The presser, the posters, the cracked lamp. And standing in the doorway he turned, faceless as always, and then raised a hand, not to wave, to point at me. The television exploded. I spent the night in my car, shivering under a blanket, heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. This isn't like before. He's not just stalking anymore. He's calling, summoning. And the worst part, he's not coming for me. He's coming through me. This morning, I checked the motel security footage. Old habit. I convinced the manager I left something behind. When he played the recording from last night, I watched myself open the room door around 3:14 a.m., barefoot, eyes blank. I walked out. Didn't return. Except I did return. I was in the car the whole night. I never left. There are two of me now. One that remembers, and one that repeats. I think that's how he spreads, through fractures, duplicates. Photographs that develop differently every time you look. People who remember things that never happened. Houses that don't exist on maps but show up in your dreams, perfectly detailed. And now it's happening again. Yesterday, Ellie called me. We haven't spoken in months. Not since she checked herself into a retreat, somewhere deep in the mountains. She wanted silence, peace, a life where shadows didn't whisper back, but her voice on the phone wasn't calm. It was shaking. "He's in me now," she said. "Not like before. I don't see him. I hear him. In the woods. In the stream. In the wind through the walls. He talks to me through echoes." I didn't know what to say. She whispered. He said, "I brought him into this world." That the photo was the first breath, and every time someone looks at it again, they exhale him back into being. Then she hung up. I haven't heard from her since. I tried to call the retreat. No answer. I searched online. There is no record of it. I drove up into the mountains, found the road she mentioned, but there was no building. No sign, just a clearing where the snow refused to fall and the smell of something rotted beneath the pine. I found a photo nailed to a tree. Ellie, standing in a hallway. A mirror behind her. And me in the mirror, even though I wasn't there. We were never going to escape this. It was never about the house. Never about the basement or the tunnel or the hedge. Those were just doors. The real prison is memory. The moment someone remembers the photo, he wakes up. I don't know who took the first picture. I don't know who framed it. Maybe it was Mom, trying to preserve a good day that never existed. Maybe it was Ellie, trying to hide something inside the image. Maybe it was him. All I know is the photo can't be destroyed. Not really. It always returns. And now I've seen a new one, taken from inside my current apartment. I live alone. Haven't let anyone in for months. But in the picture, I'm asleep on the couch. And someone else is watching me from the hallway. Not him. Not the man from the hedge. Someone else. Wearing my face. Smiling. Holding a photo of a family that isn't his, but wants to be. I get it now. He's not trying to kill us. He's trying to replace us, one copy at a time. One photo at a time. You look at the image. You remember the face, the place, the moment. And that's the breath he needs. That's the door. So if you've made it this far, if you've read this and started remembering your own strange photo, your own weird moment frozen in time, where someone in the corner doesn't quite belong, burn it. Forget it. Erase every copy. Never look again. And if you hear knocking, 3 soft taps, then 2. Don't follow it. Because it doesn't matter if you believe in him. He believes in you, and he's already framed the next photo. You're just waiting to step inside it. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe and like the video.